Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. Today it is Christmas in July. I'll be sharing 5 super easy projects that are also affordable, but what I'm most excited about is I'm collaborating with 2 of my favorite ladies here on YouTube for a Jingle in July collab. We are going to be creating some really fun Christmas DIYs. The host is Linda's DIY by Design, and we're also joined by Wendy over at White Sparrow Living. I hope you enjoy. Now let's go ahead and get right into it. For the first DIY today, I'm going to be starting out with one of these framed mirrors from Dollar Tree. And the first thing I did was just flipped it over and removed the screws from the back so that I could pop out the backing and then also the mirror that's in the frame. I'm then applying some Rub and Buff in the color Antique Gold with a fluffy paintbrush. I'm putting it on the entire frame, and then I needed a picture to go in my frame, so I headed over to Etsy and I found one that I loved, which was this one here. It was just under $3 when I purchased it, and it's from the seller, I believe you pronounce it Seren Pix, in case you guys were interested in getting that one as well. I'm then going to be using some of this cream color fabric from Hobby Lobby and a white piece of cardstock that's 8.5 by 11. I'm then cutting my fabric a little bit smaller than my piece of cardstock, and before I attach it to the cardstock, I went ahead and ironed out any wrinkles. Then I'm just using some regular Scotch tape to attach it to my cardstock. I'm then placing the fabric on the cardstock in my printer and just printing out that image right onto the fabric. Now that I have my image printed, I then just needed to trace it around my frame so that I know exactly where to cut to make it fit inside of my frame. And you'll notice my frame was not painted yet there. The magic of editing. So anyway, I went through and I'm going to be hot gluing the fabric down on the backing that was part of the frame because I want my fabric to be super tight. So once I have that done, I then put the backing and everything back together in my frame, and then I decided I wanted to add a red bow. So I used some of this red velvet ribbon, created a really simple bow, and then I just hot glued a piece of that on the back of my frame as the hanger, and then hot glued the bow at the top of the hanger. This is what the piece looks like all finished. I love how this turned out. I will definitely be printing more images on fabric for more projects because I just loved it so much. Now moving into DIY number 2. For this one, I'm going to be using this wooden log piece that came off of a rope ladder that I got on clearance at Hobby Lobby. So I had cut the rope off, obviously, and I'm just using this one log. And the first thing I wanted to do was create like a crackle effect. So I'm using some of this crackle medium and I'm just applying it with a paintbrush and then setting that aside to dry down completely. I'm also using some of these bottle brush trees from Dollar Tree. I'm removing the bottoms of the tree by just unscrewing them. And I do want to be able to put that little wire piece on the bottom into my log. So I went ahead and drilled holes. I only needed to drill 7 holes since there was already 2 on both ends, and I just spaced those out evenly. I'm then going in with some white chalk paint and painting over my entire log, and it'll give me that really nice crackle effect since I did use that crackle medium. Next, I'm simply placing some hot glue on the bottoms of my tree and then also the bottom wire of the tree and attaching that inside of those holes that I drilled out on the top of my wood. And that was the last step for this project. I think it turned out super cute. It was really simple to do, and I would love to know what you guys think of this one. Next up is DIY number 3. For this project, I'm going to be using some of this oven baked clay. I got mine off of Amazon and I'll have it linked down in my description box. I took a small amount and just pressed it out into a circle. I'm then going to be using this paper greenery piece that I had in my stash and then placing it onto the clay and then using just one of these little rollers that I have to press that greenery into my clay. I'm then very carefully going to be removing that greenery, and then since I didn't have a round cookie cutter, I just used a glass that I have to make sure that I have an exact circle for my ornament here that I'm making. I cut away the excess clay, and then I'm just going to be using one of these little tools that I have here to create a hole at the top for my ornament. For my second ornament, I did the same thing, just pressed out a piece of clay, only this time I wanted to see if one of these little pine plastic greenery pieces would work the same, and it did. I am very happy with how this one turned out. I thought it was so cute. I ended up using a mitten cookie cutter around the greenery that I pressed into the clay, and then of course added a hole at the top for a hanger. The third ornament, I did the same thing. I pressed out some clay, only this time I'm using this Christmas stamp from my craft stash. I've just pressed it into the clay and very carefully removed it. And then again, because I didn't have a round cookie cutter, I'm using my glass to press around, and then I just took away the excess from around the circle. For this next one, I used some of these letter stamps that I had in my stash to spell out the word Noel, and then I used a Christmas tree cookie cutter to cut out around that word. I then placed all of my ornaments on a cookie sheet, and then I'm going to be preheating my oven to 275 degrees. And then once it's preheated, I placed my ornaments in my oven and baked them. It shows 11 minutes, but I ended up doing them for 15. Once they were all done and cooled, I then went in with some metallic paints and painted my ornaments. For the ones that had the greenery, I left them white and then went in with a metallic green paint and then just painted where the greenery had been. And then also around the edges, I took a metallic gold paint just to add a more touch of detail. I then used different ribbons and trim for the hangers on all of the ornaments, and also the one that says North Pole. I did that one with the antique gold rub and buff. This is what they look like all finished. I love how they turned out. They're so cute, and they were super fun to do as well. Let me know what you guys think of these ones. Moving right along into DIY number 4. For this project, I'm starting with one of these pillow covers from Hobby Lobby, and I'm also going to be using some of this Christmas print fabric from Hobby Lobby. So first thing I noticed on this fabric is there was a bunch of different little framed pictures, and I thought, okay, well, what if I cut those out and did them kind of like a gallery on the front of my pillow cover. So that is what I'm doing. I'm just going through and cutting out each one of my pictures. I did one of each print that was on the fabric. Then I got them all placed on the front of my pillow cover how I wanted them to be. And then I went through with hot glue and started just hot gluing those patches or pictures down on my cover. Now you could use fabric glue, or if you sew, sewing would be a great option. It's probably the best, but unfortunately I don't sew, so here I am with some hot glue. Once I have them all glued down, I thought it would be really cool if I framed every single one of my pictures, kind of like what would be like a framed picture. So here I just went through with different ribbons and trims, and I just switched them up for each picture, and I used even jute and some burlap ribbon as well. And that was pretty much it for this. I put in a 18 by 18 pillow insert, and this is what it looks like all finished. This was so easy to do, and it was super fun coming up with different ways that I could place them on the pillow, and I just love it so much. Next is the 5th and final project in today's video. I'm going to be using some of this white trim from Home Depot, and I just went in and started sketching out a snowman shape on my trim, and then I went ahead and cut that off camera with my jigsaw. This is the shape that I ended up cutting out. I'm not super happy with it, but I'm still learning with my jigsaw, so I'm going to work with it anyway. I went ahead and used some of this salt wash and mixed it into some of my ivory colored chalk paint. I wanted the snowman to have some texture to him, so now I'm just going to be going in and painting on that salt wash and ivory paint mix. Once that paint dried, I then went in with some brown chalk paint, and I'm just going to be distressing my entire snowman because I am going to be making him have a very rustic look. I'm also using this burgundy and cream color fabric from Hobby Lobby. I'm cutting out enough so that I can create my snowman's hat with this. But before I make my hat, I wanted to create my nose for my snowman. So I took a piece of balsa wood and I'm just using some scissors to cut it into a carrot shape. It is a little bit out of focus here. Sorry about that, but you can kind of see what I'm doing. So once I have my carrot shape all cut out, I'm then going to be just using some orange colored paint to paint that. For my snowman's eyes and mouth, I couldn't find anything small enough until I saw these felt numbers from Dollar Tree. They have the really small circles on the insides of the number 8. And I just went through all of them and pulled out those little circles on the top of the 8s, and I used those for my eyes and mouth. But before I create his face, I went ahead and attached that fabric to the top of his head to create my snowman's hat. And then at the bottom end of the hat, I went ahead and just used a piece of jute twine to tie that off. And now I'm going to be going in and hot gluing those little round felt pieces to create my snowman's face. I did the 2 on the top for the eyes, of course, and then I did 5 in a smile on the bottom, and then just went ahead and hot glued that carrot nose in between. I needed a scarf, and I went ahead and just cut another strip of that same fabric that I used for my snowman's hat, wrapped it around his neck, and hot glued it into place. For the buttons on his belly, I'm using these rustic star buttons that I had in my craft stash, and I'm going to be hot gluing all 3 of them in a straight line going on the front of his belly. To create my snowman's arms, I had a few of these tree twigs, and I'm just going to be breaking them down to the size that I need for his arms. I'm then gluing 2 of them together, and then once I have those attached to create his arm, I'm going to attach his arm to the side of his body. And I did the exact same thing for the other side. I then decided I wanted his hat to have some burlap on it. So here I just cut a piece of a burlap ribbon, and then I'm attaching it to the very top of his hat. And then I just wrapped those 2 ends of the ribbon around the backside and secured those into place. I wanted his scarf to have a little bit more details, so I added a piece of this white string and just attached it with some hot glue and added a cute little button. And this is my cute little rustic snowman all finished. I had so much fun creating him, and I really hope that you guys like him too. If you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, I hope that you will consider subscribing. And don't forget to go and click on the playlist down in my description box so that you can check out the other ladies' videos that are in today's collab. I hope that you enjoyed today's video, and thank you so much for watching.